Something that had been discussed quite a lot in the last few months of the 2021-22 campaign has finally happened. Manchester United officially confirmed what everyone knew all along. Paul Pogba has officially left Old Trafford as a free agent for the second time. Last time around when that happened, the Havre Academy product left after featuring in 3 games. This time around, he leaves the club after amassing over 150 appearances in all competitions. This time around though, his departure should be taken with a feeling of being let down, especially for the United supporters. In 2016, Pogba returned to Old Trafford for €105 million from Juventus, where he had established himself as one of the finest midfielders on the planet. His arrival was marked with scenes of jubilation, and it was widely believed that this version of Pogba was exactly what United needed to return to their past glory. On paper, it made a lot of sense. In Italy, Pogba was an all-action midfielder who was given the license to roam freely, creating havoc in the opposition half, providing assists and scoring screamers on a regular basis. Back when he left the club as a free agent, after apparently having his head turned by his late agent Mourinho Raiola, a lot of people felt that Sir Alex Ferguson made a big mistake. However, there was something that the legendary Scot had seen that we couldn't. It wasn't as if he didn't trust Pogba, it was just that Sir Alex never really liked the behaviour of the player's agent, and therefore decided not to put up a fight to keep the player. But then again, if a club pays a world record fee for a former player, there has to be a concrete reason behind it. On the sporting front, United management believed that bringing back Pogba would finally offer the coaching staff a dynamic midfielder who would take on the creative burden head-on, as evidenced by his time in Turin. On the marketing side of things, Ed Woodward had gotten himself a truly marketable player who had millions of fans on the digital space. And on top of that, Pogba was joining a club that was always under the microscope and playing under a manager who has never been shy to speak his heart out. Jose Mourinho might have his faults, but during Pogba's early days back at the club, the Portuguese tactician defended him staunchly. By the end of his first campaign, Pogba had proven himself to be a player United badly needed. The Frenchman even scored the winning goal in the Europa League final against Ajax. That was United's first continental trophy in almost a decade, and Pogba's role in that could not be understated. But little did we know that Pogba and United was the story of a one big happy family that actually wasn't. There was definitely something brewing in the background that no one knows about. In the first half of the 2017-18 campaign, Pogba missed around 8 games due to injury, but his performances weren't impacted. But then, the wheels simply started falling off. There were always indications that Pogba was never the most disciplined midfielder, and his role in the team expected him to help out the defence when needed, and Mourinho also insisted him to play in a deeper role. His lack of discipline and shirking from defensive duties had started annoying the special one to such an extent that he started leaving him on the bench in favour of Scott McTominay, who'd only recently been promoted to the first team. In fact, there were even times when the former Chelsea manager spoke highly of the young Scottish midfielder as a barb to the Frenchman. But those are the things that can be sorted out eventually. Unfortunately, the next event was actually what was the beginning of the end in many ways. Mourinho Raiola had always been a vitriolic character, and ahead of the Manchester derby, City boss Pep Guardiola claimed that he had been approached by the infamous agent the chance to sign Pogba. Of course, Raiola denied that. Pogba scored 2 goals in that game and helped United to an improbable win. Alas, that was more of a case of papering the cracks than anything else. The die had been cast, and things were only going to get worse. Ahead of the 2018-19 campaign, Paul Pogba became the club's temporary captain, following the departure of Antonio Valencia. The Frenchman relished the opportunity and made a great start to the season. Sadly, his form started deteriorating, to the point that Mourinho took the armband away from him. A few days later, the two men were filmed having a confrontation during a training session. The relationship between the two men had become strained, with the outspoken tactician even calling him a virus. During the January transfer window of that campaign, Raiola tried to transfer his client to another club. Eventually, though, the Frenchman won the war of attrition with Mourinho getting the sack. The Portuguese was replaced by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, a man who saw Pogba become one of the hottest young prospects in football during his time with the club's academy. The Norwegian's arrival saw Pogba return to his best form, but towards the end of the season, he went back to his usual ways. During the summer of 2019, Pogba made matters worse by hinting that he was nearing the end of the line at United. Real Madrid were very much interested in signing him, but United resisted the temptation. In the midst of all that, Mino Raiola kept talking about his client wanting to leave, and even started criticising Manchester United. And to the shock of a lot of fans, Pogba never once came out to calm things down, which meant that his mind was elsewhere. These instances kept happening throughout Solskjaer's reign, and it had become clear that the player no longer felt that need to help the club improve on and off the pitch. Of course, we could talk about all sorts of tactics, but it's still a little befuddling to see Pogba show much restraint and discipline when he's playing for France. There is a school of thought which suggests that Pogba does well for Les Bleus because Didier Deschamps plays to his strengths. That was never the case at United, but there were quite a lot of times where he was given a chance to shine. But then again, we need to remember that the best version of Paul Pogba at club level was when he was playing alongside Andrea Pirlo, Arturo Vidal and Claudio Marchisio. The presence of these three meant that the Frenchman was allowed to play to his strengths, rather than worrying about defensive responsibilities. At United, Pogba was in a team that did not have the best midfield in England, and he was expected to be someone who would do everything that normally requires the presence of two midfielders. United signed Pogba, but they never had a concrete plan to get the best out of him. When a team is scouting a player, they normally know what they're getting. At United, though, it appears that the scouting staff is not really doing its job. They should have seen it coming. Pogba was never going to be their midfield general, and the club should have supplemented his arrival with another midfielder whose presence would allow the Frenchman to do what he does best. That was never the case, and at the same time, we never saw a lot of effort from the Red Devils to bring in a midfielder who would complement the Frenchman. However, we can't put the blame on Pogba's failure entirely on United. A lot of things that happened during his 6 years at Old Trafford were also because of the midfielder's overall attitude. There were so many cases where he would try too hard or would hog the ball so much so that he would be dispossessed. While those things might go unpunished in Italy, the Premier League is a different place. And then, constant interjections from Mino Raiola never allowed Pogba to settle. We always got this feeling that the super agent was only trying to get the next best move for his client, rather than look for stability. These things do have an impact on a player. All in all, Paul Pogba's second coming at United was a lesson in how not to prepare for an expensive arrival. United focused on a player who was really good and had a lot of promise, but forgot to see that he was not going to be the definitive answer to their midfield problems. The player, on the other hand, gave up too soon in terms of adjusting to new requirements, while also giving his agent a free hand to do and say anything and everything. The last 2 years have been miserable for Manchester United, and perhaps things could have turned out differently if the Pogba situation was managed better. But then again, we can't completely pin the blame on the player. United themselves have been acting like a team that's running without a plan. They have a new manager for next season, and even right now, they haven't made any headway when it comes to finding a replacement or adding a new midfielder to their ranks. And if that remains the case this summer, then it will prove that United's misery of recent years was never because of Pogba or his shenanigans.